Substituting for
We have a budget.
All right, okay. I'm fine with that.
As long as it's record.
it'll be prepared based on.
They want to make that
I'm
distinction.
not worth a damn.
That's not good. The shoulder's all right. That's a good thing. See, you got something to be thankful for.
Not enough hours in my day.
Where's Christine? Oh, there she is.
I was going to shut up 5 this
Let me get this thing going.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's the
Start
day.
at 7.
We want to be
And you have a
timely.
presentation at 7 o'clock.
I'll be timely.
I didn't even get my driveway shoveled before I left. So,
Is he packed yet?
Huh?
Is he packed yet?
He's packing now.
Yeah. Taking his water wings?
I'm surprised.
He's taking his pool stuff, yes.
Yeah, good.
That's because the park and recreation is off.
Enough of the small talk.
All right.
He's ready. Chris, I'm jealous of your tie.
Oh,
Pretty
thank
cool.
Thank you. I like yours too.
Got a Christmas tie.
Is it
on.
Christmas?
Dark
Yeah.
blue, yeah.
That's an attorney power tie.
I was
Yeah.
admiring that earlier today.
Yeah,
Well, every meeting from now until Christmas, I'm wearing a Santa
because I
tie.
don't
All right.
have my own. Hey,
All right.
I got
I
like
am,
ties that I tried to get the heck out of.
Calling the Wednesday, December 4th, Public Health and Safety meeting to order. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call, please.
Wheelock?
yes, ma'am.
Thomas? Yep. Rennie?
Here.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yes.
Inman?
Here.
Max Bauer?
Here. First item on the agenda is, well, it's the third item, I'm sorry, approval of the minutes.
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Rennie, is there support? Supported by Commissioner Wheelock, discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same, motion carries. Next on our agenda is the first opportunity for public comment. As many of you know, we do have a public hearing scheduled for this evening as well to talk about the pension obligation bonds and another public hearing regarding the 2014 proposed budget. So keep that in mind if you would like to speak to those two issues. There will be a time for that. So, Sarah, if you would read the rules for public comment.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Opens Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Okay.
Okay, point of order.
Yes,
The public hearing on those two issues
is later on.
is
in
later
the-
on, so we're just,
This is general public comment.
okay, cool. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Radu, would you like to step forward?
Christopher Adu, 2745 Green Meadows Drive, Traverse City, Michigan. I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to come and talk again about the bond issuance. And I want to start with, where did pension bonds come from? They were to address the legacy costs that came as a promise to workers. And prior to 1986, there was actually a tax-exempt benefit to issuing the bonds. Prior to the enactment of Tax Reform Act of 1986, properly structured bonds could bear interest that was excluded from gross income for federal tax purposes, which meant that there was a natural arbitrage that existed for municipalities for the benefit of issuing the bonds. If you get to issue tax-deferred bonds, You get a lower rate, and then you can invest in taxable assets, and you can get a natural spread that exists. So there was a benefit to doing this. California was one of the first states to take advantage of that, but of course, in 1986, the benefit was removed. People have continued to use these bonds, even though that primary benefit has been gone since 1986. There's no reason for us to start walking down this road. Last time I talked about arbitrage, focused on it a lot, and the myth of the 8% return. And many pension funds use 8% as an objective for a return, but few people ever stop to question, where did that objective come from? MERS actually lays it out very specifically for you. They say interest rate. Funding plan benefits involves the accumulation of assets to pay benefits in the future. These assets are invested, and the net rate of investment earnings is a significant factor in determining contributions required to support the ultimate cost of benefits. For 2011 actuarial valuation, net long-term investment yield is assumed to be 8%. This assumption was first used for for December 31st, 1981 actuarial valuations. In other words, this interest rate assumption has not been adjusted for 32 years. But a very fascinating thing has happened over 32 years. As I brought to your attention before, interest rates have done nothing but go down. And even more interestingly, interest rates actually topped. This is a chart of the 10-year and 30-year Treasury rates. Interest rates actually topped about 3 months right before this 8% assumption was assumed. And so when this policy came out, a person could buy a 10-year government security and get a 14.18% annualized return, or in other words, 6% higher than the actuarial assumed return that is necessary in order to meet the 8% assumption. You could buy a 30-year and get 13.65% for 30 years. Didn't have to think about the investment in any way, shape, or form. You automatically got 5.65% net benefit just by buying a government bond. I don't need to tell you, but that doesn't exist today. A very wise investor who made a lot of money in the financial crisis, and the financial crisis that crippled MERS's performance, and I'll go into that in a minute, in 2008, named Kyle Bass, who was featured in Michael Lewis's book, The Big Short, once again in Boomerang, and he's on CNBC all the time. He became a multimillionaire betting against the housing industry. There's a new book that's coming out about him that just had a chapter released today, and he actually addressed this issue. Perfect timing, I think. He said, if you were the chief investment officer of a public pension fund, how would you run that portfolio? His response was, by mandate, some public pension funds can only invest 5% in alternatives. These parameters hamstring institutions like these. Let's do simple math. Historically, pensions have a 60-40 allocation between fixed income and equity. In the past, the Fed funds rate was 5.5% or higher. Institutional return bogey is 7 or 8%. MERS goes for 8. You're generating about 600 basis points, or 6%, from the fixed income portfolio across government credit, corporate credit, and distressed. You only have to generate the other 200 basis points from your equity book. Now, however, because you're generating less than 200 basis points from the fixed income book, you have to somehow generate 600 basis points from your equity book. It's just not going to happen. It hasn't happened in the last 30 years, so how do you manage that? The only way is to lower the return target. In Illinois, they're starting to do that. Now they're saying 7.75 is possible. He was pressed again. What about the promised liabilities in the pension system, for example? That's an unsolvable problem, in my opinion. But you have to start moving there. You might start with increased contributions, but this hamstrings budgets, which is why I'm sure so many other people are here to talk about that. These are some of the unforeseen consequences of a zero interest rate policy. A policy, by the way, that the Federal Reserve has illustrated they have no intention of changing anytime soon. He goes on to address public balance sheets. In terms of the public sector balance sheets, do you take into account the contingent liabilities? Pension plans are backstopped by taxpayers, after all. His response is, when you take that into account, you add another $1 to $1.4 trillion worth of liabilities, which again is why we're here. Because rates, and this is going to get a little technical for a second, and I apologize for that. Because rates have done nothing but basically go down for the better part of 30 years, I brought an illustration for money that's already been invested in MERS, in the fixed income component. If MERS had purchased a 30-year Treasury in 1991 with a coupon rate of 8%, which meets their objective, that bond today would be worth $141 with a par value of 100. Or in other words, it's trading at a 41% benefit, which means that it's getting It's getting credit for being 41% inflated in asset price, and it's still cash flow yielding 8%. But if you were to take that money and buy it today, your cash flow yield is only 2.3%, which is woefully under your 8% objective. Put another way, that same bond, since rates started moving just a little bit, on October 23rd was valued at 144.19. Today, it's valued at 141. Interest rates on the 10-year, a comparable, went from 2.49% to 2.84. So not even a full percentage point, not even half a percentage point. The net result was that that asset declined by 2.2% in value, or 1 full year worth of income, meaning that if you double down and put money in today, according to MERS's asset allocation, if you had done this on October 23rd, your fixed income portfolio would already be down the entire year's worth of cash flow that you're getting. It doesn't make any sense. If we look at MERS's returns, that means that historically they've been inflated because they have assets sitting on their book that will mature at 100 that are valued at 141 today. So all that means is every year that this gets closer to maturity, it's going to go down in value. If we look at their 10-year returns, in 2006 it was 8.8, in 2007 it was 8.2. This is on a 10-year rolling basis. In 2008, magically there is no 10-year number given, but they did acknowledge a 25% loss. I'll let you guess why they don't have a rolling 10-year number on there, but my suspicion is that the number would be negative. If we go to 2009, again, no 10-year number given, but they do acknowledge a 17% gain, which means that they got back a lot of what they lost in 08. 2010, magically the 10-year number returns. It's at 5.53%, which suggests that timing is important. And with markets at all-time highs in the equities, I would suggest that now is probably not the time to be doubling down on the pension obligation. 2012, they finally get back to 8.06, but the S&P is within 10% of an all-time high. Now, if we talk about their diversified portfolio as far as asset allocation goes, by the way, if anybody has any questions while I'm going through this, feel free to interrupt me. Their asset allocation in 2003 started at 56% for equities, 32% for bonds. I could go through all the years, but it's going to waste a little time, so I'm going to cut to the point. They're getting less risky with their allocation. Today's allocation is at, and we kind of touched on this last time where people said, well, it's a diversified portfolio, so it's not investing in bonds and everything like that. Today they're at 44.5% of global equities. Bonds are at 35%, and alternatives are at 19%. Now, the question is this. If Kyle's right, and if I'm right, and you can't get that arbitrage, how does the math stack up on that? Well, if you doubled the money and gave it to them, as you're suggesting that you might do, your bond portfolio with the 10-year yielding 3% would contribute 1.05%. So 35% of your money would contribute 1.05% of your 8% objective. Global equities would have to return 10% a year, in order for you to get 4.45% from them, and your alternatives would have to produce 13% a year in order to give you the additional 2.5%. Now, alternatives, gold's down 26% year to date. Oil's only up 6%. Is real estate going to make up the difference? If it does, that means you're going to get more revenues from real estate collection, but I think we all learned the lesson that real estate does not go up forever. Baird told you that this is a good idea, that you should do it. Well, I have a simple question for you, because I have a client who used to work for Bear Stearns in their bonding department, and he said, if Baird thinks this is such a great idea, why don't they bond the issue for you? In other words, why don't you raise the money, hand it over to them, they'll invest it, they'll give you 8% guaranteed, and then they keep the spread. I'll give you an idea about why they won't do that. It's because if they took that to their corporate headquarters, they'd laugh them out the door. So if they're not willing to put their money behind it with that type of guarantee, why are we taking that advice and suggesting that, yeah, it's just going to work out? I also talked about arbitrage before. This is even worse. We're borrowing money in order to do this, which means, and the average cost of the bonds, which the table is right here, and I did a rough calculation on this because I was kind of running short on time putting this together, is about 4%. So that means we really need a 12% return in order to break even on this deal. Otherwise, taxpayers are just paying more in the future. So that goes back to where I told you maybe the first 5 or 10 years, this idea looks great, but down the road, if anybody here wants to guarantee a 12% return, I will gladly retire and hand all of my clients over, and one of you can take over my job, but I wouldn't guarantee that at all. The next part is, why would we arbitrage this? Part of the reason why I came last week is because I was upset that it seemed like this was getting ramrodded through. We're in the state of Michigan. If anyone was paying attention to what happened in the state of Michigan, a legal precedent was set. Now, if this was happening in Idaho, California, or someplace else, I could understand us ignoring this. But this is right in our own backyard. And the precedent is simply this. Federal Judge Rhodes gave the go-ahead for the historic bankruptcy and dashed hopes of city employees and retirees who hoped that state law would protect their pensions. Judge Rhodes ruled that Detroit's pensions would be treated the same as any other contract in bankruptcy, meaning that benefits would be cut. Rhodes noted that the Constitution of Michigan classified pensions as contractual obligations and that federal bankruptcy law clearly established that contracts could be abrogated in bankruptcy. So, why are we issuing pension bonds with no tax arbitrage benefit that cost us 4% more to issue when in our own states it's just been ruled that debt is debt? Pension debt is general obligation debt. Why are we in such a hurry to get in even more debt when there's no benefit to it? How bad is Grand Traverse County as far as this pension obligation goes? Well, the pension hasn't been above funding levels of 50.6% in over 8 years.
Madam Chairman, we have a 3-minute limit on public comment, and we're way past that.
I'm almost done.
Okay, wrap it up. I was absolutely enthralled with what he's saying, so, yes, go ahead,
We do
Chris.
have a public hearing on this issue coming later in the evening, but general public comments limited to 3 minutes.
If we look at our neighbors, Alpena's at 70% funding, Benzie's at 73%, and Wexford is at 70%. So what should we do? I don't think we should issue the bonds and double down when we're at all-time highs in the equity markets. This is a 20-year chart of the S&P 500. In order for this to be successful, this arbitrage to work, you need the equity markets to continue to print all-time highs at a double-digit rate. Seems unlikely. And if or when things go wrong, you'll be coming back to the taxpayer. Another thing, MERS is optional. A lot of people were finger-pointing at MERS like somehow it is they're the bad guy, they're the boogeyman, they're the ones that are making us do this accelerated payment. I contacted MERS. There's been 16 withdrawals from their pension system in less than 20 years, and it's accelerated in the last couple years for various reasons. Privatized, withdrawn, or dissolved municipalities.
Chris, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up.
Okay. My suggestion is follow GM and Verizon's lead. Look at privatizing the pension obligations. That's what GM did with their pensions when they came out of bankruptcy. They handed it off to Prudential, which gave them a guaranteed return. They never have to come back to their stockholders again. And Mr. Inman, you were concerned about our credit rating. Fitch looked at that positively and said that by getting rid of that long-term obligation, it was a credit positive for them. So it would help the credit rating in that regard. But you could get rid of this problem forever and never have to address it again. So privatize, negotiate, or at least look and see what happens in Detroit. This is probably going to the Supreme Court, and cities like Chicago and Philly
Mr. Radu, thank you very
are
much.
looking for this solution as well. Don't be in a rush.
Any other general public comment? Please.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Coffin Sheard. I reside at 415 West 7th Street, Traverse City, Michigan. I'm just here to be very brief tonight. I support Parks and Rec and other services that our county deserves to have and that we pay for. You wouldn't hire a tennis coach to coach football. You wouldn't hire a professional cyclist to coach diving. You wouldn't hire a gymnastics coach to fly a plane, to teach someone how to fly a plane. You wouldn't have a professional bowler teach someone how to swim. Listen to your financial director, your administrator. They are your coaches. They have expertise in not only personal portfolios.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Anna Mauser, 11644 Topview Drive, Williamsburg. I think that you guys have been kicking the can down the road so long, and that's what you're used to doing. I think these bonds are wrong. I don't think it's the solution. I think you need to look at the services, what must you provide, and go from there. There are things that it's nice to have in the community, but it's not required, and cutting public safety isn't a good idea. So I think you guys need to really think about this and make some cuts, because continuing to kick the can down the road is not it's not a good idea. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jason Jones, your county's Parks and Recreation Director. My apologies for taking up some precious time this evening, but I wanted to give you guys a quick update. I've had the opportunity to spend the past couple days in Lansing with the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. They allocated around $27 million to different projects throughout the state. Unfortunately, the grant application that we put in didn't make the cut. We were just a couple projects away from being funded, but I wanted to take this opportunity to publicly thank Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy for helping us out with this application, as well as Representative Wayne Schmidt for coming out to the meeting today to testify on behalf of that specific project at Maple Bay. The other thing I wanted to share with the commission, and this is coming around to each of you, I had the opportunity, and I appreciated Commissioner Rennie meeting with me and giving me some suggestions. One of his suggestions was to invite each of you to the January MRPA conference. It's going to be held here at Grand Traverse Resort. The information in front of you is a day specifically designated for local elected officials. If any of you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to provide any additional information or ensure that your experience with our conference is one that you'll enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one, we will move on to approval of the agenda. I have a couple of changes. One is a foundation donation that was received by the Commission on Aging, and I will put that under Commission on Aging 9B. It'll be number 2. And we also need to discuss our January 2014 meeting calendar. So I will put that on number 1 under new business.
Under where?
New business?
I was thinking of notices and announcements, maybe.
Fine. I'm not fussy.
Or committee reports, either one.
All right. We'll put it under notices and announcements.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other additions to the agenda? All right. Seeing none, I would entertain...
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented with the addition of 9A2 and...
9B2.
9B2, and under notices announcements, the scheduled date for the Health and Public Safety meeting for January 2014.
Moved by Commissioner Inman, supported by Commissioner Rennie. Discussion?
If I can just have one clarification. 15.1, the closed session. I think it should read Administrator Controller, his evaluation, his performance evaluation, as requested by Mr. Benda.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we have other issues as well.
Two issues?
We have two other issues to go into closed session. We have to speak on pending litigation, actually an attorney-client privilege memo that has been issued,
Okay.
and we have to update the commissioners briefly on labor negotiations.
All right. With those changes to the agenda, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. All right. Next, the consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will automatically be respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. All information identified on the consent calendar can be viewed in its entirety at www.grandtraverse.org. A, receive and file. 1, Community Corrections Report, October. 2, Commission on Aging Report, December 4th, 2013. 3, Veteran Services Monthly Activity through October 2013. B, Approval. Commission on Aging Acceptance of Credit Card Payments.
All right. Would anyone, any member of the public like anything removed from the consent calendar? Staff or the board? Seeing none.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Support?
Moved by Commissioner Lemkool, supported by Commissioner Wheelock, to approve the consent calendar. Roll call, please.
Thomas. Yep. Rennie.
Yes.
Lemkool.
Yes.
Lathrop.
Yes.
Inman.
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am.
Max Bauer.
Yes. All right. Next, special orders of business. We are going to have a public hearing on the intent to issue public obligation bonds. So at this time, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to comment on the county issuing pension obligation bonds, please come forward and give your name and address and make your comments.
Ross Richardson, 873 Washington Street in Traverse City. This whole pension bond thing is really nothing more than a rather complicated refinancing. What you're basically doing is you say, we have an obligation, it's X amount of money. The difference between this obligation and the mortgage on your house that you might want to refinance is that it's a bit of a moving target because we don't know exactly how much money it's going to be going forward, but it's also spread out over a very long time. The only reason it's even allowed is because the units are closed, which is to say there are no new people going in, so it's a set deal, there's so many people, and when they all retire and are paid off, then it's done. So what the county administrator is asking you to do is to refinance the debt, to spread it out over a little longer time and a little more even payments than what MERS is suggesting. I think it's a good idea. I don't say you can possibly get in trouble on it, and for all the smoke and mirrors and the former public commenter who rattled off all kinds of numbers that didn't particularly make much sense, but hey, it sounded good because nobody knew what he was talking about. But this is just a straight refinance, and I think you'd be stupid not to proceed with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross.
Anyone else?
I'm Maury Dennis, and I'm a city resident. And this bond proposal to me is a lot of smoke and mirrors. In my experience with this is going to cost $1 million, or very close to it, because there's a lot of fees involved in this. There's a lot of commissions involved in it, and you folks are going to be paying it. And what I would do instead of this bond issue is double up on your payments to MERS. MERS does not guarantee what they're going to receive or what they're going to earn on your money. So if you think it's going to be 8% and it turns out to be 5% or 4%, and you're paying out on these bonds, you're going to get the double whammy. So I would certainly hope that you look at this more seriously and get some professional advice, and not from brokers that are going to be doing the work anyway. And what will this do to your credit rating? You have an unfunded liability now that you can pay as much as you want, or you can pay less. When you get a funded liability, you have to pay a certain amount every year, and therefore this could really affect your credit rating and affect anything you're going to be doing in the future. So I strongly recommend that you look at this more closely and get some professional advice, not commission advice. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right.
Madam Chairman,
See,
if it would be allowable, you'll have to make that discussion or discretion. I had someone call me today and make a suggestion that he would like to deliver to the Board of Commissioners regarding the pension ponds. So I can make that remark now, or it can be at a later time, whatever you prefer.
I will go ahead and I will close the public hearing, and then, Commissioners, if you have any comments from constituents that you would like
Okay.
to read, feel free. Commissioner Inman.
I got a call from a respected retired bank chairman and chief executive officer from Empire National Bank, who obviously knew me, and called me on this particular issue and made a suggestion. And that suggestion was that it was his feeling that, based on the discussion that he has continued to read in the newspaper and see on the delivery of our discussions here at the county board level in these chambers, that if the board wanted an objective viewpoint that would be possibly reviewed by community leaders in Grand Traverse County that own their own businesses, that are well-known, established businesses, well-known chief executive officers of businesses within the county, that he would be happy to, upon the direction of the county board, go out and recruit these individuals that have a very successful, smart business etiquette, and are considered highly respected individuals in their opinions and their ability to make decisions in businesses, in the businesses that they operate and manage. That if you wanted to establish a sort of a blue ribbon committee in the community of Grand Traverse County and make a selection of highly qualified individuals that have the business background and the professional and accounting background that aren't commissioned, that he would be willing to spearhead that, chair it, and get it together in a relatively short matter and review it, much like we did with the personnel committee, and come back with the pros and cons and a potential recommendation. Those would be the outside eyes that, you know, from professional people that live here in our community, that would take a second look at this whole thing and say, is this a good thing or not a good thing? So I just bring that to your attention. If that is the direction you'd like to go at some point in time, then I can contact him and get that ball rolling.
Commissioner Lathrop.
I, like you, Commissioner Max Bauer, I put out a couple hundred flyers asking people what they thought of this, and I did it in the Precinct 9, which is in my district, and that's kind of the middle of the road precinct in my district. And I was surprised to get about 20% response back from these people, and not one of them said we should do the bond thing. People said, 2 people said, 3 people said, we need more information. But almost everyone else said, first, or either no, don't do it, or first lower your budget costs and then bond as little as possible. So that's just one smattering. It's not by any means a survey you can depend on, but my constituents pretty much say no. So I think the feeling my constituents would give to me is that we want to lower our budget by cutting costs first, and then whatever we have left over to bond, then bond that and bond as little as possible.
Commissioner Rennie, any comments?
I've heard from constituents that kind of echo what Commissioner Lathrop has said. I also would really like to take a good look at this privatization thing that General Motors and some of these other large corporations have gone to absolve themselves of these unfunded liabilities. If we did this correctly, it would be done. We would never have to face it again. I don't know if it makes sense money-wise or not, but I think we should look.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Well, a couple things. First, I seen the flyers.
And try to speak into your microphone for me, will you?
I seen the flyers that were distributed by some of my fellow commissioners. My concern is, did anyone take the opportunity to explain the advantages of doing the bond issue to these people? You know, the idea that we would have just a solid, structured payment schedule, that we would know what it was going to be every year. And even more importantly is, do we understand how deep the cuts will have to be in essential services to our community in order to fund the pay-as-you-go program through MERS for the next 10 years. Those cuts are going to have to be very, very deep, and there's going to be a lot of people very upset when we start making those kind of cuts. I had opportunity earlier this week to speak with Glenn Pershesky. I'm not sure how many of you remember Glenn. Glenn was Grand Traverse County's first finance director. He was here 20 years before Dean got here. He told me he reaffirmed two things. Number one, when it comes to municipal bonds, there is no one in the state of Michigan that's more knowledgeable than John Axe. And number two, we will never find more conservative advice than we get from Dean Bott. Those are the 2 points that Glenn and I talked about. And, you know, I've sat in this chair 15 years, and I sat in Long Lake Township for 18 years before that. I have never heard Dean Bott make a presentation telling the commissioners this is the right thing to do until this issue. And I am absolutely, I trust the idea that the county administrator recommends it, the county treasurer recommends it, the county finance director recommends it, the bond counsel that we've used for well over 30 years recommends it, and the independent advisor that we contacted from Baird recommends it. I'm just tired of the nitpicky thing and this idea that commissioners are going out and trying to stir up things about a petition drive before a decision's even made.
Commissioner Lempool.
Yeah, I have heard a lot of comments from a lot of different people, both pros and cons on this thing. I don't think we or anybody in the community totally understands the severity of where we're at. When you have a $13 million budget in the sheriff department out of a $37 million budget totally, guess where most of the cuts are going to be? It's going to be right off our police department. That's the only way we can make major cuts. So those of you who tell us that you don't think we ought to go bonding are telling us, the Board of Commissioners, that it's okay to cut police department. That's what you're telling. Our Dean Bott and Dave Benda have both said, in order to be able to continue preserving the quality of services that we provide in our community and to have a safe, healthy environment in our community, we need to go through the bonds. That's their recommendation. I have no feelings that I shouldn't be following their recommendation. I believe that that is the way we do. If we take and continue doing if we take $1 million out of our fund balance this year, next year we're going to take another $1.5 million out of our budget, which is going to be major, major cuts. So you're going to do the cuts this year, or you're going to do it next year, and you're going to do it next year, and you're going to do it for the next 12 years, that you're going to be cutting major services in our community. You just heard that Cadillac is cutting out the recs because they don't have money in their budget. Parks and Recreation, they don't have money to do it. How are you going to fund it? I don't want to see us do those kind of cuts. I don't think it's necessary to do those cuts. I think it's really important that we look at this bonding. All this, today's thing is whether or not we give 45-day notice. It doesn't say we're going to go out and bond. It gives us the time that if Larry wants to bring this committee together and looks at it to be able to give us some advice, we got the time to be able to do it. It also gives the community time that says, we're going to file a petition and stop you from doing it. Well, you can do that. But get all the information before you start signing that. Because if you're signing any kind of a petition like that, you're saying that it's okay to cut police department.
One of the things I threw out as I was been talking around my end of the county Well, I don't know how we can cut enough without really chopping Parks and Recs and some of the other non-required items. But one of the things I brought up to people I was talking to is, well, there's another way we can do it. We can ask the voters for a millage to operate on, or we can ask the voters to override Headley Amendment. And I'll tell you one thing, everybody I talked to got a big grin on their face because they thought it was funny because they didn't think it would pass. So, like I said before, I'm in favor of bonding, but I'm scared to death of it right now because the way the economy is and the fact that a market is high, and why? There's no reason for the market to be doing that good, so.
Well, I have been going out, knocking on doors, talking to voters, and the overwhelming theme that I'm hearing is, look at the services that you're providing, how you're providing them, and once you do that and decide that yes, indeed, these are effective services that need to be continued for Grand Traverse County residents, make sure that they want bonding to be as small as humanly possible. What I'm hearing is they simply want us to do our due diligence and go through the budget, and obviously we would want to start with the keeps. And so at the top of the list would be the Sheriff's Department, 911, the courts, and Dean, do you want to jump in here?
When you're done.
Okay. The overwhelming response I received was, don't go forward with this bonding the way it's being proposed right now. That's what I heard. So I would like to, if we pass a budget tonight, I would only vote in favor of the budget if we commit ourselves to coming back and start doing exactly what we are supposed to do. Go through department by department. Let's hear from the department heads. We've never given them an opportunity to come to us and say, well, I've got this idea here and this idea there. There might not be any ideas. There might be 10 ideas. I don't know. But I think we owe it to the taxpayers to do our very best before we go ahead with a bonding proposal. Commissioner Rennie?
I believe we did that fund balance reduction to try to give us 6 months to do this. I assume what you're saying is going to happen. I hope this isn't like a promise.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming this will happen.
I mean, that's...
But I can also tell you, there's a lot of folks out there that think we're borrowing $1 million from our fund balance to kick it down the road another year. And they would like to see some cuts now.
Yes.
And then go forward with what we're doing. That's what I have to say.
Dr. Lathrop?
Yeah, I feel I want to maintain the level of services that we have, but I want to do so by very carefully lowering our operation costs and getting inefficiencies out of the system. After that, consider a bond. To me, it makes no sense to have a big, expensive bond when we could have gotten more efficient and proficient, and for whatever way we can do it. So I think it only makes sense to try to look at major structural and organizational changes in how we dispense our services. Can we do it cheaper? There's a variety of ways. Lots of businesses have done this. I did it. So I think that comes first, bonding comes second.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Well, for 10 years, we've been chiseling away at every department in the county. 2% here, 3% there, 5% here. 85% of what's left of our budget is personnel costs. The only way you're going to cut the $1 million or $1.5 million is to eliminate personnel. And when you eliminate persons, you're going to have less service. It's that simple. Every department head that's come in here and over the last 5 years, they're not talking about wanting to get rid of personnel. They're wanting to add personnel and they're wanting to add technology. that's going the wrong direction. There's just simply no way that you're going to recycle enough paper clips to cut this kind of money out of your budget. The only way you'll cut this money is by eliminating personnel. And I remember the fight we had a year ago of over 11 janitors in a contract that in fact saved us money. But yet we still filled this room up night after night while we discussed the possibility of contracting for janitorial services. And it's saved the county, I don't know what the final number is going to be at the end of the year, but, it was projected it would save us, close to $500,000. So
maybe we should do some more of that.
Well, that's another discussion. The other thing that I've heard a couple different people talk about bonding, making a smaller bond proposal. As I understand the law, we only can bond this if we bond that unfunded liability in its entirety. There is no legal way we can sell pension bonds for anything less than the amount of money to fund the unfunded liability in its entirety, I believe. And that's probably what Dean wanted to get to, and I kind of got in here ahead. So I would like to hear from the finance director and the county administrator.
Commissioner Inman, and then I will call on Dean.
Well, I guess because we're having a discussion after the public hearing on the pension bonds, I guess I don't want to dwell too heavily on the budget discussion because that's coming up next. But I want to assure the board that my motion for taking the $1 million out of the fund balance was with the understanding, and it should, at the end of it should be in the resolution that we passed, that we will, starting in January, have detailed discussions and reviews on each department within the county and potentially come up with what we need in terms of shortfalls to establish a budget in January or in June of 2014. That was the goal, and then hopefully we would not use the full $1 million, and then we can transfer that differential back to the fund balance and make those cuts. And I think that this pension bond, the pension bond option, I think we should delay any movement on that until we go through this departmental budget process.
Dean.
Okay. The recommendation I made to the board, to the Ways and Means Committee on November 20th, hopefully you kept that. I still, that is my recommendation to the county. It's the same recommendation that Dave had initially made in the budget. I did not take that recommendation lightly. I went to Lansing. I worked with our bond counsel to get that law passed. Did exactly what the Board of Commissioners asked me to do. Ross Richardson put it probably in the best terms. It's refinancing our pension obligation. It's simply that. I didn't catch Chris's credentials. He spoke about a lot of things, and I don't want to downplay what he said. We're not looking at this to do an arbitrage thing. That's not what this is about. We don't have the flexibility with MERS, our pension system, that he seems to think we have. We're not General Motors. We're not going through a bankruptcy. There's a lot of things here a lot of comments that are made that really are not the same thing. We're not, the law that's on the books in this state, we're not going to be a repeat of what you've heard in California, Illinois, out east. There's a comprehensive plan that has to be submitted to the Michigan Department of Treasury for us to be able to even do this. That plan, we've not even done that because we can't get this off of square one with you. And I understand this is a tough decision to make. I stand behind my recommendation. We made a similar recommendation last year for our septic treatment facility, the county treasurer and I see a supervisor in the back of the room. It's very similar to that. We have a $45 million pension obligation. When this is all said and done, we'll have a $45 million bond obligation. It is a moving target. I have never told you that number is not going to change. Every year, MERS does an actuarial valuation. That number will be reviewed every year, but when we're on a fixed payment plan, we'll have greater flexibility in our budget. I'm sorry if I came across a little strong, but I did what you asked me to do. I made a recommendation. I stand behind that recommendation. And if you don't want to do this, that's your decision. I've sat through the last 2 months. I've seen how difficult it is for this board to entertain cuts in programs and services. I wish you the best of luck in doing that. And I hear that for the last however long, however far back you want to go, Sonny brings up a good point. I've worked with these departments, these department heads and the elected officials. We've gone through the budgets. You should see some of the budget adjustments I make this time of year to live within the appropriations that this board has set. The budgets are tight. Sure, can we do things more efficiently? Absolutely. But I wish you luck when you go through that process. And I will help you do that, but I stand behind the recommendation I made to you on November 20th. If you can do this, the law is on the books through the end of 2014, but it's your decision. I won't harp on you anymore about it, and I apologize if that's what I sound like, but...
Commissioner Lemko.
This is not the first time this has come before our board. I think it was June or July when you first brought this, Dean?
August, we had
August?
John Axe up, and he tried to make the presentation I talked to you about. I don't think we gave him the true amount of time. I think we cut that presentation off, and it is a hard topic to understand. I wouldn't expect the general public, they haven't had this in front of them, but I don't feel it's the general public's position necessarily to make that decision.
Now, my only comment was, this is not brand new to the commission or to the community. It has come before our agenda before, and we've continually moved it down the road. We've tried to get around it. I'm sorry, it's coming back to the time where we have to start making some really hard decisions, and this is going to be one of those hard decisions.
Dr. Lathrop, and then Commissioner Rennie.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate Dean's, I'm going to say emotion, but there's a better word for that, his genuineness. I know you think this is right, and I'm not really confident that you're not right, but I still think we owe our citizens who are paying the bill, bond or no bond, to still try to strategically cut our operation costs while keeping our services the same. We owe that to our citizens regardless of the bond.
Commissioner Rennie?
Yes, if we go forward with this bonding, are we going to face layoffs in the next couple of years anyway? Honestly? I think we are. And I don't know why we don't look at it now. And I'm not sure all the legal implications of the bond itself, but there are a lot of folks out there that think we have a problem here and that we should reorganize with what we know is going to be revenue going forward and organize the county in a fashion that we can get by on that. It seems like this bond thing in a lot of people's mind, I may be wrong, but is another way of kind of pushing this down the road a little bit. A whole lot of people think borrowing $1 million from our fund balance is doing that.
Absolutely.
Dean?
I have one more comment to make. I was not here last Wednesday night at your board meeting, and I'm not sure exactly where that's at. I've heard the term borrowing. I'm your finance director. I don't agree with that recommendation to use or to borrow $1 million of fund balance. You don't borrow $1 million. If you put it in the budget, you're going to use it, and then that fund balance is gone. It's not there. That use of fund balance is a use of your working capital, your cash. If you remember, we get the majority of our revenue, our tax revenue, in the second half of our fiscal year. That fund balance at $8 million is a good chunk of our cash flow to operate on. So I don't know what decision was made. I looked at the minutes. I saw that the fund balance policy was changed. So I don't know if a decision has been made at this point in time to use additional fund balance. But if you budget it to use, it will most likely be used.
Dr. Lathrop?
I I don't quite agree with that. We have a surplus that we know every year, we fund for 100% employment, and at the end of the year, we usually get around $630,000 back. So that's going to happen this year too, and we may not even spend that amount of fund balance that we've taken, that million, if we make our decisions fast enough. So I don't think that's right. I don't agree with Dean on that.
I would like to address Commissioner Inman's idea of a blue ribbon committee. When I was out going door to door, it is amazing the wealth of knowledge that resides in Grand Traverse County. I knocked on a gentleman's door who works for Microsoft, and I said, "The big ones?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, "We contract everything." He said, "Just the very core of Microsoft are Microsoft employees. Everything else is contracted. Database entry, payroll, everything." Someone like that gentleman, someone like you spoke with, Commissioner Inman, who's got some expertise in other areas. I spoke with a CEO, retired CEO of a corporation, who said, you address this in government just like you do in a business. I think if we put out a request for individuals who are in our community, who have this knowledge, and put together a blue ribbon committee, like we did with the wage and salary study, I think we would get some positive results from that.
Well,
Commissioner Inman, and then...
I thought it was an interesting concept that this individual called me on today, and it was solely, respective to the merits or of the pension bonds and whether it made sense for us to do it or not. And it also would provide a level of community understanding and reaction by people that are at a level that have been very successful throughout their whole career and have a big name in this town and that are well respected. So I thought it was an interesting way of approaching an issue that we're struggling with at the county level, the government level, to have some private sector individuals that are highly respected and highly qualified to review a financial matter, weigh in on the pros and cons of the pension bond option, and study it, pros and cons, and come back with what they think is a recommendation they would like to make to us, whether they make a recommendation or they think it's good or bad or go forward with it. That's what we think as a community we should do. I think it certainly would be a different way of reviewing it. I would see if we want to go forward with that, then we can structure a way of getting volunteers to meet and discuss and have some people in here to deliver the information to them. But that should be on the sidelines as we go through the budget starting in January. We don't want to delay.
I would agree with that, yes.
Yeah, we don't want to delay the process that, we hopefully committed to with putting the fund balance at $1 million back in the operating budget for 2014. I think that if we do the Blue Ribbon Committee, that is something on the side that's that's going on by the members of the public, and they can report back later while we go through the budget and make our determinations.
Yes.
So I think the two can work together.
Commissioner Lemkool, then Dr. Lathrop.
Dr. Lathrop, in comment to your about the $1 million, we're not taking $1 million out of our fund balance. We're taking $1.564 million out of our fund balance. So that $564,000 is projected as full employment that we probably may not spend, or we may or may not.
Yeah, that's true.
The $1 million we will spend. Dean said is exactly right. That money is gone because we're not willing to make the cuts that need to be done, or we're not willing to bond. That's the thing that I see. It's not the $939,000. It's the $1.564 million that we're taking out of fund balance this year for 2014.
Versus spending $28 million in interest. I think it's money well spent for us to take the opportunity to do our citizens justice, looking for cutting costs in an organizational way while not cutting services. I think it's something we should do.
Okay.
Hopefully, we can move on.
All right, we are moving.
Sounds to me like we're asking a committee to make our minds up for us.
Just
That
a
we
thought
weren't-
that I'm
we weren't elected to hold our fingers up in the air.
It was just something, all I'm relaying is public comment that was given to me that was, this person asked to make the pitch to the county board. If there's something that you want to do, that's fine, they'll be involved. If not, they have other lives.
All righty. Commissioner Wheelock, then Commissioner Rennie, and then I would like to move on to the public hearing on the 2014 budget.
This is representative government. Citizens of our community elect us to represent them in their best way. I don't believe in the 34 years I've been being elected I've ever went to a meeting that I hadn't done my homework. And I also don't believe there was ever anyone walked out of a meeting at the end of the meeting that didn't know my opinion. I make what I believe to be the best decisions possible with the information that I have available to me. And, you know, I believe that's what each of us sits here for. We've done our homework. We've listened to the experts tell us how to deal with this issue. We've heard from the bond council. We've heard from the finance people. You know, this is too damn complicated to think that everyone in the community can weigh in and can understand what it is and how it's going to work, because it doesn't. You talk about kicking the can down the road, spending fund balance in the 2014 budget, that is kicking the can down the road. There's no other way to describe what that is. But I firmly believe that the people elect us to make this decision, and it's our responsibility to do that.
Commissioner Rennie?
I would agree with Sonny on that. Actually, I think if we get some outside people in, we could get into a situation where people are questioning each other's credibility,
All righty.
background. I think it would slow us up.
Okay.
I agree with that. I don't think it
Okay.
could be done in a timely fashion.
All right.
Yeah, and I didn't place any judgment on the thought. I just wanted to relay the comment that was made.
Thank you. All right. At this time, next on our agenda is a public hearing on the 2014 proposed budget. I will open the public hearing. Please come forward.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is David Lather. I live at 2010 Arrowhead Drive, Traverse City. I'm a former employee of Grand Traverse County, and I'm now a Medicare retiree. And part of this 2014 budget, as I understand it, is in there to offset some of the cost of the Medicare retirees' health insurance. Should that get pulled out tonight, we either face, personally I face, a 112% increase in my premium, or I'm faced to drop out of the program, and I have until December 7th to find another program. So this timing is critical, and I really, I know you folks have a hard job, and I'm glad I never ran for commissioner. It's a difficult job, but this is, it's important to us retirees. We did have a concession back before 2006, I don't remember what year it was, but the non-contract group that I was part of as a department head, it was kind of a handshake deal where when we retired, the employee was going to have full insurance coverage. We realized at a later date that this was a hard thing for you folks to budget for, and we made some concessions. And so at that point, you put something in the budget each year for us, and I would appreciate it certainly wholeheartedly if you left that in there. Thank you very much for your time.
Please come forward.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jill Rarig. I live at 3955 Sherwood Forest Drive in Traverse City here. As I heard everyone speak this evening, a couple of analogies came to my mind. I've worked at a mid to higher level administratively in hospitals for a couple decades. And in the hospital world, 85% of the budget is staff. So having worked with budgets and having, as hospitals, we've dealt with that issue, it is of concern, and I can appreciate that. I do like the thought, though, of getting some kind of private minds and input into the situation. With all due respect to Mr. Bott, we're all government, all businesses, we really need to get into the 21st century. And maybe some of these ways that we've relied on for 30 years, they're still solid, they're still good, but we may need to look at some more creativity, like the Microsoft concepts of the world and how they approach business. Privatizing some of this might be a good thing. You never know. Munson Medical Center, we strived really hard to maybe pair up with the U of M, with Spectrum, and we ended up not doing that. We ended up deciding to go to the community. The community wanted to be asked how to approach dealing with financing the cancer center and with, getting money for the future. And we didn't go the typical route. Munson went with the community. So, Blue Ribbon Panel, anything like that, worth exploring for a little while. Done with that. Second piece I want to say, purely subjective. I've lived up here for 18 years now. I think we have more than enough policemen in this community. It feels like per capita, we've got them running all over. Again, purely subjective. When I think of other communities, you don't see as much police cars and things going around town. So it kind of bothers me, I have to say. And also, the court system here, God love, we need all that. We need corrections. We need all that. But we've got quite a system here. It's kind of a mill. Subjective, pure opinion on my part. I'm just a citizen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Janice Lane, and I'm here as a taxpayer, but I want to disclose that I am also a long-term employee of Grand Traverse County. Budgeting is a plan often needed to be adjusted as the events occur. As a taxpayer, I encourage you to establish a budget based on as many knowns as possible, i.e. bonding and a fixed payment, as close to a foundation as you can get, as it's a more consistent planning tool. The past precedent of playing kick the can is no longer a sensible thing to do. You have the opportunity to establish the annual payments to MERS based on a strong known rather than a fluctuating unknown. Dealing with the unknown has left you with the impression that the departments must be participating in a hide-and-go-seek budgeting process, and that by going through the budget, line item by line item, you'll be able to find enough to make up the difference. Departments are well aware of the budget constraints, continue to work within their means, and diligently present a budget based on actual funding requirements. That being said, the option of finding and eliminating over $1 million of extra or non-essential items is improbable and will only lead to cuts in services, staffing levels, or both. Employee department heads and our administrator take great prides in the jobs we do, working within the established budget. Eliminating services or positions must stop. The employees, many of whom are taxpayers, cannot continue to offer the level of service for which the taxpayers have expected and contributed to. I encourage you to support the issuing of the bonds and allow the department heads to manage their budgets. They have the expertise for their particular jobs. They know and understand the budget process and personnel requirements and prioritize based on such. The morale of your county employees continues to suffer due to the unknowns. Mainly, are we going to have a job? Are we going to be able to do the services that the taxpayers expect us to provide? I invite you to get out and meet the employees, see what they do, hear their suggestions for improvements, and learn about a day in their lives and the services provided. Working together is always better than falling apart. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, my name is Warren Call. I live at 621 Wadsworth Street in Traverse City, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. In my professional life, I'm involved with several initiatives designed to recruit talented people to this area. It's a real challenge. We're in competition with Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, and Chicago, as well as other places, for tech workers, knowledge workers, young doctors, entrepreneurs, and professionals. The wealth of public parkland and recreational facilities in our community is one of the best assets to attract these new people, as is the safety of our community. Personally, I live in this community not just because of the safety, but because I go camping on Power Island, fly fishing along the Boardman. I take my children to swimming lessons at the pool. I went to Twin Lakes Camp as a kid, and I returned to this area as an adult because of the recreational opportunities and the safety of this community. The opportunity for an active lifestyle and the safety is why many people of all ages are here and why they stay here. Our county recreational facilities and programs are impressive. They are administered by a well-run, committed, and highly regarded Parks and Recreation staff. They follow the guidelines of a comprehensive and inclusive strategic and master planning process, a plan that was developed with extensive input from the community. The progress and results thus far have been promising. It would be a mistake, in my opinion, to throw this progress away and overlook the great importance that recreational amenities and public safety play in attracting and retaining a vibrant population. Some of the measures under discussion by the Commission have a great capacity to do harm to our reputation, and future prospects is a great place to live. It'd be detrimental to endanger one of our key selling points and the wrong message to send to current and prospective future residents. I would encourage the Commission to consider the issue in this context. Pass a responsible budget that will continue to sustain the great facilities, amenities, and programs provided by the Grand Traverse County Parks and Rec Department, as well as our public safety officials. On a budget issue and general bonding questions, you can't cut your way to success. As Mr. Bott and Mr. Richardson put it quite well, this is a simple refinance. Even if your mortgage payment is too high currently, it still makes sense to refinance it. It's sound numbers, it's sound math. 100% of your professional advisors recommend it. And as good as the Blue Ribbon Committee is, they're going to come back with the same recommendation. As excited as the young man from earlier is, he's got a lot of graphs and a lot of numbers, but I'm in the same industry, and he doesn't have the facts. It's simply the only logical thing to do. So stop kicking the can down the road and just pass it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Campbell, 7058 Leori Drive in Traverse City. I'm the president of Lake Effect Associates here in Traverse City, and I'm concerned that this commission does not understand the importance of our county Parks and Rec's job and the job that Jason Jones does. Our economy in the Grand Traverse region is driven by tourism, and I'm in the business to help promote and endorse our area as a premier destination for outdoor recreation. What message are we sending to the local business community that depend on these visitors to earn a living when our county commissioners can't agree to support the parks, spaces, and staff that help maintain these amazing assets? As a community, we need to work together to promote the same message, and right now the commission in front of me seems more concerned about their personal interest and the best interest of our community. Today, there was an article published in the Business News about a collaborative marketing campaign that my company is working on in cooperation with Traverse Tourism and Experience 231. Experience 231 is a group of local nonprofits and governmental organizations that have come together to help promote and market our amazing natural resources in the area, and Grand Traverse County Parks and Rec is one of the founding organizations. The goal of the online campaign will be to drive traffic to the Experience 231 website, where Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation is shown to be a leader in outdoor recreation in the area. Without the full support and staff, or without the full staff and support of Jason Jones and the Experience 231 project would not be nearly as effective as it's been. We look forward to continued growth. The Grand Traverse County Parks and Rec team take care of some of the most sought-after recreation opportunities in our region, and any cuts from their department would be an economic blow to our entire region. Cutting Parks and Rec would not only affect Grand Traverse County residents, those who work here, but also those businesses that rely on these assets as a tool to attract visitors that purchase their food, buy their clothes, and rent their rooms. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Megan Olds. I'm the Associate Director of the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy, and I live at 235 East 9th Street. I want to make my comments really briefly tonight because I know you have important discussions and deliberations here. But first, I just want to thank the County Board and the County Parks and Rec Department for being such strong Parks and Rec leaders over the last 23 years that the Conservancy's been in existence. We've been really honored to partner with you to protect special places like Maple Bay and Keystone Park, and to work with you collaboratively on projects like the Experience 231 project, and as well as partnering to help develop your strategic plan. I just want to make 3 points. I was pretty disheartened and alarmed to learn on the front page of the paper that you were thinking about eliminating your Parks and Rec program. And the first reason for that is because you guys are really seen as statewide leaders in Parks and Rec. You have a real leader in Jason Jones in terms of his leadership through the Michigan Recreation and Parks Association. You're going to be hosting the statewide conference up here in January, and a lot of eyes are on this community in terms of the leadership you've provided and the parks you've created. And you also helped to host a national conference here just this last summer. And your parks themselves are incredible. Not a lot of counties can boast having an island as part of their park system. One of the other reasons I was disheartened by the risk of having the Parks Department taken away was that this, like it's been mentioned before, this really is part of our region's brand. Our Parks and Rec departments are part of the reason why people want to live, work, and play here. They're part of the reason that I chose to move here in 1999 and why I still choose to live here today and make this my home with my family. The third reason I was disheartened and alarmed was that there was really no warning to your partners that your budget was in this severe of a state and that your Parks and Rec program might be at risk. After reading the front page of the paper, I met with some folks from the Chamber of Commerce and from Rotary Charities and from the Olson Foundation. And even though each of us come at this issue from different lenses, the Conservancy as a conservation partner, the Chamber as an economic development leader, and the two foundations as philanthropists and investors in your Parks and Rec program from the private sector, we all share the same common value for protecting and preserving and enhancing access to nature in this region. And I would just encourage you, before you make a decision about your budget for your Parks and Rec department, that you reach out and engage with us as your partners so that we can explore opportunities and work together on solutions so that you can continue to invest in what's making this a great place and a great parks program. Thanks for your time tonight.
Anyone else? Andy?
My name is Andy Merrick, live at 2875 East Railroad Avenue. I was not planning on speaking this evening, but one thing that bothers me is I have to go home and explain to my son that our government is having an issue coming up with a budget, even at a local level. If we have so much money coming in, we can only have so much money going out. I'd like to believe that you guys are able to come up with an answer on where to come up with cuts. I know Dean does a great job. I've heard him for over a year talk about the budget. I know if you turn to Dean, Dean has answers. I don't know about the bond. I can't explain the bond. No one's been able to explain the bond idea to me. I hope it's not just a Band-Aid to put on a major cut. I believe you've got to do some cuts. If I only have so much money coming in, I can't go to the movie every day. I love the movies, but if I can't afford to go, I can't do it. And that might mean some of the extra things that we really enjoy in this community may have to suffer a little bit, or we may have to look at other ways of getting volunteers to step up and fill some of these holes that may be filled because jobs may have to be lost. It happens in the private sector. It probably has to happen in our public sector when we as taxpayers are providing the money for these services that we may not be able to afford. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. I will now close the public hearing, and Commissioner Inman.
Madam Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve the county administrator's recommendation memo dated December 2nd, 2013, to the Board of Commissioners, signed by Administrator David Benda, for a 2014 budget of $39,304,699 and the attached 2014 general appropriations resolution as presented to the Board of Commissioners.
Is there support?
And I would like to have this ratified as a full Board of Commissioners at this time.
Is there support? Support by Commissioner Wheelock. Discussion. Commissioner Lemkool.
I cannot support this budget taking money out of our fund balance. Also can't support the fact that we're got a 5% increase for CPO officers when we know that the townships have told us that they can only willing to support maybe a 1.5% or 2% increase in community police officers. I also don't see any cuts in here that we're going to talk about to our commissioner budget. We've got an email asking us whether or not we want to go to conferences. I think we ought to cut the conferences right out. That's the first area we ought to be looking at our own personal budgets and saying, where can we cut? Where can we start putting money back into our own? We need to make the budget cuts within our own budget first before we do anything else. So I think I really have a problem borrowing the money. I have a problem with some of the proposals in here, particularly the community police officers. If we don't do a 5% increase, that's another $70,000 that we're going to be put into, that we're going to borrow out our fund balance. So that brings the fund balance up to, that you're going to spend $1.634 million. That, to me, is a real kick down the road. So personally, I cannot support this proposal.
Dr. Lathrop?
Madam Chairman, I would accept a friendly amendment on the community policing officers' percentage increase from the floor.
Dr. Lathrop?
You may surprise you, Herb. I agree with you that I don't want to vote for this tonight because I think that 5% increase is too much. It should be closer to 2% or 2.5. Also, this restores the, I think it does, the Register of Deeds secretary position.
Yes.
And let's get the elephant out and talk about the elephant. We are going to have to change our staffing structure. You're right, Senator Wheelock.
Not a chance.
My God.
Not a chance.
You're right. We're going to have to get more efficient and more proficient. That's going to mean some changes, whether we contract it out or whatever we do. And to bring this person on right now, we're down the road, in 6 months, we might eliminate her again. I don't think we should do that. That's already happened, who this person is. I think she was brought on, then let go. She's brought back now, if we pass this. And then we got to let her go again if we change things. So I think we should stick to our hiring freeze.
This particular employee was hired and is currently working, so I want to be clear on that.
Yeah, it's still someone here.
Okay.
She was hired just
Well,
recently.
didn't you?
A couple days before the hiring freeze was put into effect.
So what takes precedence?
Well, she was hired before the hiring freeze was passed by the board.
Oh, I see.
A couple of days
A couple of
before.
days before.
Okay.
And
so this would not be breaking the hiring freeze rule?
No.
Dave?
I haven't said a lot tonight, but, we're going to find a way through this. And we have a couple of new commissioners on the board, and it's been a while since the long-term commissioners have gone through the budgets as is being discussed. And it's not a bad exercise. It's actually a great exercise to sit down and look at the budget, the Board of Commissioners budget, and talk about what's in it, and decide whether it's all necessary or not, or whether and you don't have to make your decision right away. In fact, I'd encourage you not to make a decision right away, to go through them all and start, tallying things that you might personally think you want to get rid of. And we're going to go through the circuit court and the district court, and we're going to go through the sheriff's department. We're going to go through all these budgets. You're going to learn a lot about these departments. Hopefully you'll stick to policy issues and not go digging so far deep into it that you get lost. Because this is a big policy discussion about what we should be doing with county government. And that's a great thing to do. And I'll help you we will help you any way we can to get there, to get to the place you want to get to. Not a problem. And pension bonds, in my opinion, and Dean's opinion, we've looked at it. We think it's a great idea. It's a different, we have a big expense. We look at all the line items in the budget, and we see legacy retirement costs, and it's $4.2 million. And we know it's going to over $6 million in 10 years. And we think it's going to cost money, yes, to stretch that out for 20 years because you got to borrow money to do it. We think that's a smart thing to do. But it's not going to get done tonight, so we're going to have to do it a different way, and we're going to get it done a different way. We've got a bunch of things happening. MMRMA just told us they're going to give us $115,000 in that we did not expect in net asset distribution next year. We can put that toward our $1 million problem. On the other hand, we've got probably another $100,000 in circuit court we've got to cover, so that's gone. But we are going to. We have some things with our public health building. It may get sold, it may get rented, who knows. But there are opportunities there for us. If we keep focused on the problem and getting it solved, we will solve it. And as we go through each departmental budget, I have plenty of questions. And I can find a lot of places to cut and do things differently in the county budgets. The question is there the political will to do it? When you say, hey, why do we have corrections officers in the courts? Why are they standing there every day? There's a couple different ways to do that are quite a bit cheaper.
Right. Yeah.
Are we going to do that? Is the judge going to, go along with that and be party to that and be a part of that solution if we're going to propose something like that? That's something that you're going to have to go through. Right now, the judge likes it the way it is. He likes it the way it is, and he's got some statutory right to do it that way. And so, you can talk about it, and you can try and get some money that way, but, we just have to do it one piece at a time, and it's not an undoable task. $1 million seems like a lot of money, but in the context of a $37 million budget, it can be done.
Amen. I want to hear it.
All right, good. So, this budget says even if you decide you're going to give the township policing officers 2.5%, or you're going to hold them harmless, or whatever you're going to do, you can change that, and whatever number you want that to go down by, we can increase the use of fund balance, and it just means our problem got, instead of 939,002 that we're adding, it'll be 939 plus X. So you've got some options, and you can do those things, and we will, if you pass that this way tonight, we'll bring you back the full budget with all the numbers in it, and it'll be all put together based on what's in this memo right here, which pretty much restores all the cuts.
Okay.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Well, I supported the motion tonight for discussion purposes, and I made the motion last week to spend $1 million of fund balance. I do not believe in it. I don't even begin to tell you that I believe in it, because this absolutely is kicking the can down the road. And I guess I have a really big problem with the inference that we haven't went through the budget line by line and seen if there's fat to say to be cut out. That's what we've been doing for 10 years. That's what Dean and David did before they brought us the budget. I'm not sure, and Dave and I have had some discussion whether or not the recommendation to balance the budget by eliminating 1 captain, 1 lieutenant, 1 sergeant, and 5 road deputies was to balance the budget, or if there was a little shock value in it. But the fact is, that's the kind of money we have to cut. And it's not there's simply not a place that you're going to cut this money without affecting services. And we provide hundreds and hundreds of services to this community, but there's not one service that we provide that there aren't citizens in our community that depend on. So you need to understand, when we make these kind of cuts, we are going to have to cut service to somebody. It's that simple. I supported the motion to have the discussion. I'm not at all happy about using the fund balance. And, when it comes down to the final vote, I probably won't support this budget resolution tonight.
Commissioner Lemko?
I just got an email from another organization that's going to come to us for more money, that got money last year out of our commissioner's balance. We're going to have these things all year long. They're going to take more money out of your fund balance when they come in. We got $100,000 in our commissioner contingency fund. I think it's 100.
It's contingency.
Yeah, it's $100,000. We can cut $100,000 out of that contingency fund right there and not put any of these additional recommendations. Sonny and I have both been totally opposed to them coming, the Kingsley South Civic Center coming to us to be able to take money from us. I understand why you would want to be able to give it. If we pass this budget, we cannot continue to fund these programs. In our budget coming up is an exception for the hiring fee freeze. So all of a sudden, you're going to put more people back in, you're going to continue taking more money out of your fund balance, you're continue to kick the can down the road, or you're going to take more money and erode what you got when you start putting all these different requests coming in to be able to add more money to your balance, to your budgets. We're not doing it right. We're doing it piecemeal when we start doing things like that. That Kingsley thing should be in the budget. It's not in our budget. And they're going to come back to us in March and ask for another $25,000, and we're going to give it to them.
No, we're not.
Oh, yeah, I think the votes are there. I'm not either. But I'm just saying is that this is where, this
But
should
he's
be,
done now.
it should be in this budget today, not coming down and asking us to do it in March or April.
Commissioner Rennie.
It's not in our budget.
I agree.
Commissioner Rennie.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I could not vote for this tonight either. Without doing any eliminations or making some tough decisions now, I don't see how we can go into our fund balance. I think that is, in fact, kicking it down the road, as Commissioner Wheelock has said. With respect to Civic Center South, happens to be in my district.
I know.
I'm bringing it, Herb.
Then put it in the budget.
We tried.
It's a requested budget.
We did try to put that in the budget, and it did not show up in the budget.
Well, Commissioner Inman?
Well, with regard to the motion, I would be receptive either now or sometime beyond. We always amend the budget monthly anyways, every month. So in January, if we want to amend the budget to reflect the township billing of 5%, and they can come up with how to do that, then that would be fine with me. I think that's a more fair issue. The issue I have tonight is we need to adopt a budget. These departments need to have, number one, we're required by law to have a budget by the end of the year. If we don't have one, that potentially could throw in a number of concerns with the state of Michigan regarding our ability to on financial matters, and the last thing we need to have is an emergency manager assigned to us because we can't balance the budget. So I say let's approve what's got in front of us tonight, and in January, if you want to make some changes, that's fine. We'll talk about how we can make those adjustments. But tonight, we need to have an annual budget for 2014.
I want to address the use of fund balance being used to kick the can down the road. I've been saying that for 4 years, and no one would listen to me. No one. And suddenly, because we have a revenue problem and an expense problem, they're going in opposite directions. Suddenly, it's can kicking. I have to tell you, taking $1 million out of fund balance right now is about the last thing that I want to do. And I would only do it provided that we start immediately looking at how we provide services. There are ways that we can provide services and reduce costs. I've gone door to door and I'm hearing ideas from people. They're out there. But I would like to schedule a meeting as quickly as possible if this motion passes tonight. Because we do have to have a budget to start going through it thoroughly.
We can make the cuts in January.
So,
We can do whatever we want to do. We gotta get
what's
on it.
everybody's calendar look like? I mean, I need a commitment from commissioners. If I'm going to vote yes on this, I need a commitment that we're going to do what we need to do.
Yeah, you have my commitment. That was the way I framed the purpose of the fund balance. Yeah.
Well, this is out
Yeah, that's all right.
I'm
Go.
sorry. This may be putting the cart before horse, but in a little bit, we're going to be looking at the issue of whether we want to bring on 2 more sheriff deputies. All right, it's just a few minutes, am I right? All right.
That ain't gonna happen.
And I'm going to vote no on that. Because I believe we should have the hiring freeze until we get through all this. So, I'd be more likely to vote yes on this if I know we're not going to be, in the next minute, hiring $150,000 worth of 2 new people that might have to go away in 6 months. So I don't know how to discuss it in order, but
All right.
Well, you got my commitment.
Dick?
Call the motion.
All right.
And
Roll-
the
roll-
motion on the floor is to approve the presented budget as presented.
With a change, did you say, in the proposed 5%?
I said I would accept a friendly amendment. That has not been put on the
All right,
floor. But
then
what I
it's-
did tell the chair and the board is that we can make that change anytime.
All right, well, the motion on the floor is this
anytime in
budget
January or whatever.
as presented.
Yeah. I mean, we
Roll
don't
call.
Rennie?
No.
Lemkool?
No.
Lathrop?
no.
Inman?
Yes.
Wheelock?
No.
Thomas?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes. Motion fails.
Well, somebody want to make a suggestion?
Yeah,
Next.
have a nice day.
If somebody would like to rescind their motion on the bonding proposal, that would be in order, I think, also. But it has to be one of the no votes.
Hearing none, I guess we move on to the Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office.
Ms. Chairman?
Yes?
Can we set another date to be able to discuss the budget?
I'd like to be here tomorrow.
No, that ain't gonna happen. Let's
We have
let's
to
get it on the
give- we have
agenda
to
at
give
RMA.
notice.
I agree. Let's wait.
Okay,
Yeah, let's get on
how
discussion for
quick,
RMA.
how quickly?
Let's get it on discussion. Let's put it on the board for RMA.
All right,
And we need some solutions.
Okay.
all right. Okay, next, Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office, dive, rescue, and recovery vehicle.
Good evening. My name is Tom Bensley, Grand Traverse County Sheriff.
I'm Nate Elger, Grand Traverse County Undersheriff.
Before you is a proposal to purchase a dive rescue and recovery vehicle. The one we currently have is 34 years old. We outgrew that some time ago. This is one of the items that we proposed about 4 years ago in a letter to then Chairman Mr. Thomas on how to spend or use funds that we received in a seizure action. Before you is our recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Rennie.
I would make a motion to approve this purchase with seizure account funds in the amount of $161,244 for the new sheriff's dive vehicle, whatever that is.
Is there support?
Sure, I'll support it.
Moved by Commissioner Rennie, supported by Commissioner Wheelock. Discussion, Commissioner Lemko.
I would love to be able to support this, but this is a non-mandatory service. So is this really something that you're going to put on the agenda in the future to be able to, that you're going to want to get rid of this particular program? I don't know that. We haven't had that discussion with the Sheriff Department or anybody else. And, you know, this money, could it be spent more wisely someplace else and to be able to eliminate the budget?
Right.
No, that's not in the
Seizure
budget.
funds. Commissioner Wheelock.
Couple things. I've spent those nights in the dark in the old bread truck. You know, it's a little crowded. It's not very warm, and all of those kind of things. But first, you have to remember these are seizure funds. They can only be used for very specific things. They cannot be used to supplant existing funding. They can only be used for very specific things. A new dive vehicle we absolutely need. Whether, you know, until I got this packet, I still haven't really seen the exact specifications that were sent out for bids to see whether or not there's another option. You know, there's always more options, but the fact is, you know, I trust that these guys did a good job in drawing the specifications and sending it out, and I will support the purchase of this. We are required by law to recover dead bodies. That is a statutory responsibility of the sheriff. He is responsible to recover drowning bodies. He has no choice. That is his responsibility. And with the amount of water that we have, we need to have a dive team to do that. You know, we've been very fortunate in our community to have the cooperation of other agencies to help us have an adequate dive team. And, you know, like I say, I've spent those nights in the cold and the dark, and we never have a shortage of divers. You know, I know some surrounding communities that can't say that. You know, they simply have to wait for us to get there or somebody else to get there to help them because they don't have the ability to handle it on their own. You know, the sheriff did a great job in his 2014 budget of paring back that Marine budget that, you know, he and I and some of the rest of us have all had discussions about where that Marine budget should be and compared to what the DNR authorizes. But I will support the purchase of this vehicle. I think it's long overdue to replace this vehicle, and I believe it's a perfect opportunity to use the seizure money in an acceptable method. I don't remember, and at some point or another, somebody can tell me what the balance of that funding is.
The sheriff can tell you.
I'm sure that somebody can.
We talked this morning.
The balance in that fund will be just over $11,000.
And Tom, there was a time that we had to spend this money, or it went back to the feds. We've got to be getting close.
Those rules along the years have changed.
Yep. Yeah.
We are in compliance still.
Okay, because we were, you know, I knew we had like 5 years to expend all of it, and we had to be getting very close.
Yeah, it changed, and the last time we received a payment was in April of 2010 on the seizure. As far as Commissioner Lemkool, your comments, one of the stipulations is we have to, Commissioner Wheelock addressed it a little bit, we can't supplant funds with this. So anything we use these funds for has to be for something we don't have, okay? Which means that the old ban, we are not going to get rid of that. We cannot get rid of that, okay? We will be repurposing that. That's the politically correct term, I guess. We're going to gut it and continue to use that. but it will not be used as much as the new vehicle was. We have some money in the budget for next year to use that, and it's in good shape. So with the seizure funds, we have only made 6 purchases. This would be the 6th purchase using those funds, and obviously the largest part of that was the property and building that we constructed.
Okay, Commissioner Rennie, did you want to add anything?
I believe we have a motion. Let's vote. Let's vote.
All right.
vote.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Hiring freeze exception.
I hope that you do not feel that this is incredulous on our part to bring this to you in this period of time. What I fear is the October 30th policy was adopted without a complete understanding of what our hiring process and what our turnover rate is. We lose between 3 and 5 people every year. And we fill those vacancies as time permits. But in 2012, we lost over 40 months of service from police officers on the road. 2011, it was 34 months of service. The reason for that gap is it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on how quickly we can turn around those applications to police officers. And then it takes 3 months to train them and get them out on the road. So if we're losing between 3 and 4 bodies every year, we here have 2 vacancies in the last month. We expect to have between 4 and 5 next year. We'll be down 6 to 7 officers. We have 37 worker bee police officers that are out in the streets, they're in the detective bureau, they're handling complaints. Those officers, if you take those 7 away, we're starting to have a problem providing the services that we can provide to the county. So we're not here in the face of this budget problem, we're here trying to solve a problem for us. And that problem is we always have officers that we need to hire. We always have vacancies. Officers leave for a myriad of reasons, and we had one leave today, actually, just decided to change careers. That impacts us, and it impacts us for about 6 months with each officer. So we are asking for 2 things tonight. One, we're asking for the ability to hire the 2 officers that we already have backgrounded, and the second request is to be exempt from this policy. The reason I asked to be exempt from the policy is we have this issue. Every year we turn back personnel funds that aren't expended, and the reason we do that is because we are never fully staffed. I've been the undersheriff for over 10 years, and we've been on staff twice for a period of about a week and a half each time. We don't keep our staff. We have turnover, as every agency does, and it takes us time to fill those vacancies. So I would request that you reconsider the hiring policy for the sheriff's office, even in the light of the circumstances we have here today. We have had vacancies all year. You will see a return from personnel funds this year from the sheriff's office, just like you have every single year.
Just to clarify what the undersheriff said is that for the past couple years, I think this year was
40 hours in 2012.
40 months. I mean,
40 months.
we don't have somebody on the schedule for 40 months. They may be there, but they're not out there working on their own. So that's 3 to 3.5 people every year that are not working. We're not asking for more. We just want to be fully staffed. So I don't think this is an exorbitant request, because as long as the hiring policy, the freeze is in effect, somebody else leaves. Now we're just keeping that, and these are averages, okay, but every year we effectively don't have 3 people working. We don't have 3 people out of the county-funded portion of our officers. They're just not there.
Commissioner Inman.
I'm not saying no to the request. I think that it would be inappropriate for us to make this call tonight, given we do not have a 2014 budget, and that we want to go through all the departments and right-size them, or justify the size that we have, or the continuation size, or an increased size as we enter the first of the year. So my suggestion is, I'd rather defer this thing, but, I hate voting no on it, but if my no vote would be basically a deferral until we have an 014 budget, A, and then B, they could, since they're the largest department in the county, they'd be the first up on our first meeting in January, and they'd have their decision on these two officers when we go through their department budget. And that's how I'd like to handle it, and have them, and we'd get them their decision in January.
Is there a motion on the floor? No? Hearing none?
Is there room for more discussion?
Certainly.
Okay.
You really should have a motion before you have the discussion.
Okay,
I'm flexible, though.
I'll make it, but doesn't mean I'm going to vote for it.
Well, I made the discussion, I made a remark without a motion.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
but you're not supposed to.
Yeah, you can.
Robert's rules
Make the
says you
motion.
have to have a motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we, what am I supposed to do? Say it again.
Defer this decision until we have the 014 budget and their department is reviewed by the county board.
I make that motion.
Is there support?
Second?
Support. Okay, now you may talk. And then Commissioner Rennie.
The question I have, I'm your biggest fan. I really am. But what is going to happen if, in 6 months from now, we say, look, guys, we got to knock it down to two people? And if we now say, yeah, go hire them, and in 6 months we say, we didn't mean that.
Well, given our situation, as the undersheriff explained, we have a lot of turnover. We may have 2 additional vacancies between now and the middle of June.
Let me be
Now, I'm just going on history. We have people who are eligible to retire at this point
Yeah.
with their full retirement. And as time moves on, that number increases.
I get it.
So-
But could other department heads say the same thing?
Certainly they could, but
So
we
they
have,
could come and say, look, we want more people, they're going to get matriculated out. I mean,
we're not asking for more
We're not asking
people.
for more. We're just asking to fill 2 vacancies we have. We just have 2 vacancies.
but we may be cutting vacancies.
Understand that.
Okay.
We understand that.
And we would lay them off.
And they would have to be laid off. But on the other side is, given our track record,
Those vacancies are going to be there.
Commissioner-
there may be additional vacancies because of retirements, job change, moving from the area.
But any department could say that.
Sure.
Okay.
Commissioner Rennie.
I would support the motion as far as the deferral goes. I don't see why we would look at 2 officers now, not knowing that in the next couple of months we could be making some decisions on personnel. I would not absolve the police department from the hiring freeze, though. We're in a real bad situation, I think on a case-by-case basis. These hires can be brought before us, and if they're warranted, you're going to get the hire.
That's what we're doing. And honestly, the next few years, you'll solve your budget deficit.
I believe that, too.
Yeah, just by our department, through officers leaving the department.
But I will say, I don't want to criticize you for bringing this before the board, although I was a little surprised when I read the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to defer this. Commissioner Wheelock.
Well, I think everyone knows I have a long history with public safety and have been a huge supporter. That being said, at this particular moment, until we have a 2014 budget, I cannot support the hiring. And I'm like Charlie, I'm not going to give the sheriff's department a clear pass on anything. You know, the sheriff and I have had these discussions. You know, the bottom line is the sheriff's department is 1/3 of our general fund budget. You know, we cannot make the kind of cuts that have to be made in the budget and say that the sheriff's office is hands-off. We can't do that. So I'm going to ask the and I will support the deferral for tonight. And I
This actually,
absolutely-
our legal staff says it needs to be a motion to postpone. So I'm going to change that, suggest we change that word defer to
Okay.
postpone.
All right, with a friendly amendment, I will change it, worded from defer to postpone.
Postpone.
Do we need an
Until we
amendment
have
to do
the
that, Chris, or
014
can you just
budget.
reword
We
it?
have
You
the
can just
department
reword
review.
it.
Okay.
Okay.
Sarah just made
All
the
right,
change.
all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's better
Thanks.
than a no.
That's what I said. We love you.
Yeah.
Better than a no.
We're looking at
Thank
it
you.
in an optimistic
Hey,
way.
Mr. Wheelock, I've heard you say this before, and I want to be very clear to the Board of Commissioners and to the public. The Sheriff's Department has never asked for a pass.
I know.
In 2004, we reduced significantly. We reduced again, I think, in 2010, and we are well aware that if this budget goes the way it appears to be going, we'll cut significantly again, but make no mistake about it, that is going to impact the services we provide to the county. So we've never asked for a clear pass or a free pass or any type of pass whatsoever. And we fully intend on meeting with you soon, I would hope, with a budget that we can discuss and show you the operation, and we would take input. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
All right, next on the agenda, Commission on Aging.
Georgia Durga, Director, Grand Traverse County Commission on Aging.
Good evening, Holly DeWalt, Deputy Director, Commission on Aging. We're coming before you tonight with a recommendation from the Commission on Aging to enter into an agreement with Northern Healthcare Management, which is also known as Community Mental Health, Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. They approached us to inquire if we would be interested in entering into an agreement with them through the Michigan Waiver Program. And that is a program that provides services to senior citizens to allow them to stay living safely in their home. So it certainly partners well with the mission of the Commission on Aging. And if this agreement passes, it's something that they would include Commission on Aging as one of the partners, and any of their constituents eligible for our type of service could choose us as one of their service providers. They reimburse us for the services that we provide, and in your packet, there was a chart that kind of laid out what those amounts were. The Commission on Aging Board did accept this proposal at their November 5th meeting, and the agreement has also been reviewed by Mr. Forsyth with approval as well, so.
All right,
Motion to approve as presented. Second.
motion by Commissioner Inman, supported by Commissioner Rennie. Discussion, Commissioner Lemkool.
I don't see how you're going to make money on this when your hourly rate is, I think, $38 or $45 an hour. And this shows me that you're going to get $16 to $20 an hour, $16 to $40 an hour.
Well, the hourly rate depends on the service. It's
Depends on the
different for each
service, but your
service.
average rate is like $45 an hour for your
No, I think it's in the
employees.
30s, but anyways.
Whatever.
It's still not gonna, you're right.
It's not, this is
Yeah.
going to cost you money to be able to put this program together.
We already do
There's a reason
this.
why mental health wants you to be able to be this, because they're not making money. AAA also provides this waiver
Yeah.
service. There's competition between those two already. The state of Michigan requires there's a certain amount of competition that has to be done for these type of programs. And we're in an area that doesn't support having 3 different organizations having a waiver program in our community. I really can't support this program.
Can I just say, though, that we aren't really doing it to make money. We're doing it to be a partner with those organizations. We've been doing it with the AAA. I think with the area agency, we probably have 2 clients, 3 clients.
It's
We
very
generate some revenue. Some of the clients we serve anyways, we just generate additional revenue. It's not a really significant number of people, but we still are trying to be a good partner with these
I
organizations.
understand the partnership.
Commissioner Wheelock.
Well, I understand the partnership too, but what I also know is how the partnership has worked with the commission, or the community mental health involved in our treatment of our people in our jail. The county came out on the short end, absolutely hands down every time. And I'm not going to support this as a partnership either. I just think they're asking us to provide services because they don't want to do it. We have discussions here tonight about we're going to have to cut out services. This is an expansion of services that we can't afford.
Well,
Commissioner Inman?
this is not what we can afford. This is already, this is going to be contracted out to the extent that it's not going to cost the Commission on Aging
Absolutely.
additional
The numbers
expenditures.
show that it's going to cost you certain money. Because they're not paying as much as our bill costs are.
That's true.
So I wasn't aware of that.
The
Well,
fee that they're recommending isn't the same as our current bill rate.
These two organizations, Area Agency on Aging and Northern Lakes, have to contract services. They can't provide them directly, they have to contract with
I understand
different
that, but what about the differential? I mean, I don't think we should take a program on if it's going to cost us additional money. I thought it was a break-even deal on our part.
No, it's not break even. But we've been doing it with the area agency for many years.
On other programs, you mean? Or on this particular?
It's the exact same program. The state requires that there's competition in the community. So area agency provides Medicaid waiver services and Northern Lakes provides waiver services. And they're supposed to be competitors. And each service provider, each one of those has to have a provider list. And then the clients choose from those list of providers who they want to provide the
Well,
services.
so if we don't do it, who will, and how important is this
Someone
program?
else on the list will do it.
There's private companies that'll do it.
Yeah, there's
Dr.
private,
Lathrop.
for-profit, nonprofit.
Well, then, if that's the case, I suggest we let someone else take the loss and not us.
All right. We have a motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Can I ask a clarifying question then? Should we then discontinue our relationship with the Area Agency on Aging then? Because it's the exact same relationship.
Do we have a contract in place with them?
We have an agreement.
We need to
Yes.
find out when the renewal on that agreement is and what the opportunity to get out of that agreement is.
Okay.
We're providing a service that's costing us additional money.
Unless they want to match the amount that breaks even, or
tell you
that
they
formula
won't
can
try
be
that.
fitted.
Okay. Now for some good news. The Commission on Aging has received a foundation donation of $25,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And Georgia, would you like to speak a little bit about the foundation and the donor?
The foundation was formed by the family of, actually, we received an anonymous donation from the family, and since that time, for $50,000, which we use for transportation and heating assistance, since that time, they formed the foundation and now have called us and asked to give us another $25,000. We are asking that we use that money for transportation assistance, which we keep no admin money for. It goes back into the community to home health care agencies, cab companies, buses, whatever, transportation, beta passes. We get no admin money, we keep no admin money, we keep nothing. So we are asking that this money go for transportation assistance. We've been doing that for about 2 years. It's been very well received, very successful. People can go ride when they need to ride and not when a bus goes or when a volunteer feels like going. So this has worked really well, and it's a blessing, and we'd like to continue doing transportation with that.
All right. We have a motion to accept the donation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Veterans. Reappointment. Hang on a minute here. I gotta
Mr.
go
Chairman,
there.
I make a motion that we reappoint Mr. Wentworth to the Veterans.
Is there support?
Second.
Waiving the term limit.
I thought we eliminated all the term
Well, that-
limits
supported by-
years ago.
It was to be a
Supported by, Commissioner
guideline.
It was a
Thomas.
guideline.
It's
so-
a guideline,
yeah.
that's all it is.
Moved by Commissioner Lemkool, supported by Commissioner Thomas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Now, got to bring up my agenda thing again.
Human resource.
All right. Human Resources, Finance, Workers' Compensation. John?
Good evening, Jen Seaman, Human Resources Director. In front of you is workers' compensation approval for 2014 and for 2015. We did take our workers' compensation out to bid, and in front of you are the quotes that we received. And this Dean was also part of this process. We have recommended to you a, which is option number 5 and under your list, for an annual quote of around $45,384 for our workers' compensation, with the specific retention that's listed there. And it's a 2-year. We were able to get a 2-year quote, which is actually very unlikely to get. We were able to get that because of our low incidence with our work comp. We have very low incidence. Our employees do great with our safety, and it was we were told, very hard. They don't offer many 2-year quotes. So Dean and I are recommending that we take advantage of that 2-year quote, so that way we know what the cost is for 2015 as well.
All right, Commissioner Wheelock.
Madam Chairman, I'd move that Grand Traverse County enter into a 2-year agreement effective January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2015 with CMI and Midwest employers with the specific retention of $400,000, $500,000 at an annual rate of $45,384. Effective
Lathrop.
Immediately and ratified tonight.
I'll second it.
All right. Roll call, please.
Lemkool,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Thomas,
Yep.
Rennie,
Yes.
Max Bauer.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Administration, resolution opposing Senate Bill 552.
I didn't know if you wanted to see something like this, but the Property Tax Act is being proposed to be amended to exempt oil and gas well drilling companies. And it's just a special exemption that came up, and it's one of those things that could get legs fairly quickly and just run and be approved. And it creates a very unfair, in the words of our equalization director, a very unfair playing field for these folks. Everyone else has to pay these costs, and they're looking just for a special exception. We don't have any problem with the state legislature giving out special exceptions to specialized industries, but why don't they pay for it instead of taking it out of our tax revenue? They've taken a lot of money. The veterans process that we just went through, they did that. They ran it through on a freight train. We didn't even get a chance to comment on it hardly, and the numbers that they gave were bad. We've already had over 100 veterans apply for that exemption. And some of those are out on the peninsula, and they're $600 to $1 million homes, and the people don't really need the exemption, but they're not going to turn it down. So state legislature did that for us. They didn't pay for it. I've heard that our representative has a bill in blue back to exempt us from that particular, revenue loss as a result of those freebies given away. But this one is another one, and we want to let them know that we're fine with them giving away exemptions as long as they pay for them.
Commissioner Wheelock.
Madam Chairman, I would move we pass resolution opposing Senate Bill 552.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Rennie. Discussion.
A year ago, we spent a whole lot of money paying to have an audit done of personal tax, specifically geared toward the oil and gas industry, primarily in South County, and found hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment that wasn't paying personal property tax. And now we're going to turn around and exempt that. We figured it would take us 5 years to recover the money that we expended, so.
Commissioner Inman.
If we can just make sure that staff sends this to, or the resolution gets sent to our representatives in Lansing, the Michigan Association of Counties.
It's all done.
And
It's all in there.
It's all in there?
It's in there.
Okay, all right. I'm fine with it then.
Commissioner Lemkool.
I'm not so sure that if we couldn't add to the resolution the comments that Mr. Wheelock has said, due to the fact that we did spend a lot of money in doing personal property taxes, and just adding that as part of the resolution so that they understand where we're coming from. We have personal experiences, so they understand what we did and how it's affecting the actual work. So I'd like to add that into that resolution if we could?
Yeah, and we did that at the urging of the State Tax Commission.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have no unfinished business. We have no new business, since we moved our calendar stuff to notices and announcements. This is our second opportunity for public comment. Please, step forward.
I feel like I'm sitting in a hole. My name is Jerry Irene Leroy. I live at 885 East South Airport Road, Traverse City. I came tonight because I had a lot of questions about the bond issue. One, how did we get to such a high deficit that's been not addressed for so many years? While I was aware that there were a few cuts last year, was any of the money from those cuts applied to this deficit? Which would seem like a normal thing to do. If you make a cut and you've got a deficit, you pay it for it. So that just brought a lot of questions to mind, and I've sat here all night waiting to make my comment to see if I could learn something more about what is happening and why it has taken so long to address a deficit. And I really didn't get a lot of answers from this, to tell you the truth, of how we did not address this sooner. Refinancing is a nice term, but I know of several people who kept refinancing their houses when there was a boom. And when the bubble bust, they were underwater, and everybody lost money all the way around, and we're still paying for that, too. To me, getting a bond to pay off a debt that you're increasing more in debt for is like paying off a credit card that you've spent too much money on with another credit card. You're compounding the issue all the way around. And I want you to give consideration when you think about all your workers in government, and I've worked in federal government before, and I understand, and I've faced several cuts when I was a federal government worker, because when things had to cut, that's where the money is. I understand that. But when you don't make cuts, the taxpayers sitting out here, and especially those that I am the ranks of now, of a fixed income, without any really realizing any kind of cost of living because of the way now that's considered, it doesn't apply to any of the things that are really necessary for a person to live on. We're the guy that's paying the bill, ultimately. And since I moved up here to Michigan, I, number one, found, because I lived in Texas for 20 years, I found the first thing was what an increase of the cost of living was up here compared to there. Enormous, all the way around. And ever since I've been up here, from the federal to the state to the county to the township, I've seen my taxes go up, but my income has stayed virtually the same. And you have a lot of seniors up here that are facing that. So if you don't cut, I have to cut something more. And so do all the other people on fixed incomes. So you need to consider that you need to work very limited budget. I mean, there are no extras for any of us anymore. And it isn't looking like it's going to get any better anytime soon. So I'm going to fight every time I hear of something that you're going to do at any level of government that is going to cause me to have to cut more and more in my budget. You throw around, and the federal government and the state government throws around millions, billions of dollars. Well, I don't come anywhere near that. So my cuts can't go very far before I lose everything. And you don't really need another person out here drawing welfare. We've expanded Medicaid in this state, and that's going to cost us money too. It's got to start here at this level, and it's got to work its way up to higher levels of government. Because we can no longer keep asking the taxpayer to pay more for everything every level of government does. It's too much, all the way across the board. Absolutely too much. So get out your red line and look that budget over good. And I'm going to be watching to see if I can get more information of what's in your budget. From what I've seen, there's one place I could see right away that I think should be cut: the economic development. From what I've seen since I've moved up here, most of the things that they have recommended cost us money, and some of them, most of them, seem foolish, not necessary, like the roundabouts that we're going to be put in here. That's the silliest thing I ever heard in my life in a place with snow like this, and the trying to plow it and everything like that. I've lived in states where it had that. But that's not a necessity. It's not a service to us. It's a detriment to us, the taxpayers. I'd like to go look at your budget and see what's in there, where the money is going to this grant and that grant. I was very pleased a couple of months ago when we stopped you from giving to Planned Parenthood. I don't want to pay for everybody else's abortion or contraception or anything else, but I'm going to be forced to through the federal government now. Look at what you're supposed to be supplying to your community. You do not have a carte blanche. So please give that really serious consideration. Because I'm a fiery redhead, and when I get fired up about taxes that I can't afford to pay, you're going to hear from me many, many times. I'll also applaud you when you do something right. And there are 2 or 3 things on the agenda tonight that I think you made a good decision on. Some of the suggestions to go back and really take another look and to bring in other taxpayers that might have some good ideas, I think is to be commended. But I think there's plenty of places you can cut. And that's the first thing you do before you start doing this move that's going to cost us more money. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Supervisor Korn.
Good evening. Chuck Korn, Garfield Township. I think I know a little bit about how we got here. I think that we got a 3-year freeze on increases in payments to the pension fund. A 3-year freeze. We're at 47% funded. The state of Michigan average is 71%. The country is 75%. So we went for a 3-year freeze to keep it there. That's why we're in this position. If we had made cuts 3 years ago, they wouldn't have been as deep, and they would have paid off by now. The bond thing scares me to death. You have $42 million invested with MERS right now, and they have absolutely clobbered you guys. Give them the chance with $87 million, and they'll put you back to the Stone Age. I know it's not easy. I know it's really hard. And I know you're not going to look the employees in the eye and tell them they got to go. But somebody has to. I wish you courage. I wish you strength. I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? All right. Commissioner committee reports. Any? I have one to report. The Parks and Rec Board decided against raising pool fees beyond the 5% that the overall fees are, that the county board has said. So I wanted to share that with you. On to notices and announcements. Time for our
Yeah, but on your board, on your desk is housekeeping.
January meetings.
So that talks about our January meetings, that we will have an organizational meeting on the 2nd of January.
Hang on.
And the public health and safety will be held on the second Wednesday instead of the first. The resource management will be on the 3rd, Ways and Means will be on the 4th, and a board meeting on the 5th.
Oh, I just got my calendar. out.
January.
Can you repeat all that for me?
It's all on the back,
It's on
Larry.
your
Okay.
It should be, it's under housekeeping.
Right
Larry,
there,
turn that
right in
over.
your left
There you
hand,
go.
Larry.
There you go.
Right there. Turn it over.
All right.
There you
It's
go.
all right there.
All right. Thank you.
And then in February, we'll revert back to the regular first, second, third, and last Wednesdays of the month is the calendar, if that's all right with everybody. And also, if there's anybody that would like to review the board rules, if you would like to have an ad hoc committee to look at those board rules, now's the time to be doing that, because we have to have those submitted by the 2nd of January. If you have any changes in any of your board assignments that have been assigned, you need to make sure I get that before the 18th of December. Otherwise, I'm going to be making the same assignments that we currently have.
Fine with that.
Does everybody understand where we're at?
Yep.
Okay?
All right.
Can't stand it.
Next, we have.
And the calendar is on the back of that. Yep, on the back of this is also the calendar for January.
Okay, good.
All right, next
Good
we have
suggestion.
our
Thank you.
closed sessions. So,
Motion to go into closed session for
the administrator controller appraisal for,
Labor negotiations.
all right, personnel evaluation? All right, for personnel evaluation,
And the third?
Pending litigation
pending litigation,
and labor negotiations.
and labor negotiations.
Okay.
That was moved by Commissioner Thomas,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Wheelock. Roll call, please.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Thomas.
Yep.
Rennie,
Yes.
Lemkool,
Yes.
Max Bauer.
Yes.
We do not expect activity coming out of closed session, right? We don't expect any decision coming out of closed session?
I am in all likelihood not.
Yeah, I think she does.
You know, this is just about a motion to go home now. First time in my life I have a headache.
And I'm giving these notes back. I just soon have you have them back. All right. Let's hand our confidential minutes back to our legal counsel folks.
Motion to come out of closed session, Madam Chairman.
Motion by Inman, is there support?
Support.
Supported by Wheelock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion carries. Commissioner Wheelock.
Madam Chairman, after reviewing the administrator's evaluation, I would move that we deem that his performance exceeds the satisfactory level as required within his contract.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Goodness gracious.
She's scrambling.
I'm scrambling. Hold on.
Look around the room, see who's here.
Inman.
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yep.
Rennie.
Yes.
Lemkool.
Yes.
Lathrop.
Yes.
Max Bauer.
No.
Why? Okay, so,
Is that to adjourn, you said? No?
Madam
No.
Now we need a
Madam
motion.
Chairman, I would also move that we direct civil counsel to proceed with the litigation, pending litigation that we reviewed in closed session.
As directed?
As directed.
Second.
Supported by, moved by Wheelock, supported by Rennie. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn, Madam
Adjourn?
Chairman.
okay.
All right.
The Flower Fund,
Move.
Okay,
we
we're
have
adjourned,
three-
right, Madam Chairman?
We're adjourned.
All right.